Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show. And in this episode, we are looking at an Indonesian film called May the Devil Take You. It's a 2018 film, part of our 2018 catch-up kind of season, as it were. And we're going to talk about this. So we'll start spoiler-free, as we always do. We'll warn you before we get into spoilers, and that's what we're going to do. Timmy.
Yeah.
Normally I start with some small talk, but we just recorded another episode, so it's kind of weird to say, how are you doing, Tim? What's up? What's happening? What's hip?
Okay. You sound like some guy trying to go undercover as a teen or something.
What, you mean like Steve Buscemi? How do you do, fellow children?
Fellow children. And I also, when you said "May the Devil Take You," it made me kind of think like, oh, it sounds like that's what they would say like at the end of a like Satanist church meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when people are like leaving, like like, oh, may the devil take you. Like, oh, thank you, may the devil take you as well.
Yeah. To where though? Like, may the devil take you to prom? May the devil take you to the theater?
Yeah, you know, a free ticket's a free ticket.
Oh dear.
I mean, have you seen Gotti yet?
What? Gotti?
Yeah, the horrible John Travolta movie about the mobster John Gotti.
I can't say I have, no.
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked it is it's a very bad movie, but they like he's always talking about like New York, and like they always like really go like really overboard in explaining stuff. Like they'll be like, oh, like when we talk about New York, we talk about all the boroughs, the Bronx, Brooklyn, like Manhattan, like they always like go overboard on like explaining what's very obvious. But yesterday I was hanging out with a friend, and we were joking, and we were doing that, but like with the devil. Like, so we're having like Satan be like I rule all the circles of hell, gluttony, lust, and just like going through like naming stuff. So the joke is it wouldn't make sense if you haven't watched Gotti, but we were doing John Gotti but as the devil impressions yesterday.
That's a very specific story, Tim. It's very specific. So, to get onto the topic of the movie here, it's directed by Timo Tjahjanto. I have no idea to pronounce that. I apologize. But yeah, so that's the director, and this is a film.
Now, for those who don't know, what does a director do?
A director, he gives instructions to the actors, and
you went to film school. This shouldn't be that hard.
It's just a big question. A director does a lot of things.
Do they feed the cast?
No, they don't feed the cast.
Okay, so maybe you should have started with that.
I mean, I think the two primary things outside of everything else I'd say a director does is choose what the shots are and how the movie's going to look and come together, and instruct the actors. But generally speaking, the point of the director is to have a cohesive idea of what the end product's going to be, so he can instruct, and I'm saying he, it can obviously be he or she, can instruct everyone in every department so that the end is a cohesive whole. A good director makes everything come together and work as a unit. A bad director can fail at any of those things, and it'll be bad.
Oh, this is good. We're learning. So
yeah, we are learning. What a random start to this episode. Tim's feeling something today. I don't know what it is. He's sitting there with his finger up his bum or something, but he's in a good mood. So, what, were you denying it?
Oh, no, but
yeah. I did not think so. I did not think so, Timothy. So,
sassy head.
I don't know. There's not enough sass in my life, Tim. I need to add more sass to my dialect.
Was that when you're? I was trying to think of the word resolution. I almost said revolution, but I was like, okay, is that your revolution of the year?
No. I don't have resolutions. I have New Year's reservations.
Oh, okay.
I am simply more reserved. as the year goes on. At least I try to be. So, so reservation as the resolution.
Sure. Okay.
And I'm not calling it a revolution, but it could be if it becomes a movement. So, yeah. So what's the movie about? The movie is about I mean, we focus on the daughter, but we start with a man, a father, who makes a deal essentially with a witch or a sorceress, someone who's a soldier of Satan essentially, for gain, for money. He wants money, and he becomes filthy rich. And we cut ahead to the just present day story, where now all these kids are adults, and he is dying, and this leads the one natural kid, the one main character Alfie. The rest of the kids are all sort of stepchildren, from other wives. It leads them back to his house where he gave this sacrifice, made this deal for all his wealth, and they end up unleashing the presence of the thing that did this in the first place, and chaos ensues. And I think that's pretty much all I can say without spoiling stuff, because this movie goes in some directions that I don't think I was expecting, given how it started. So we'll delve into that a little bit later in spoilers, but that is the gist of it. So I shall ask the question, Tim.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy May the Devil Take You?
I did enjoy it. I don't think as much as I had hoped, because I was actually pretty hyped for this movie. One of the reasons why I wanted to watch it and then discuss it is I had heard about it. It was on Netflix, but I kind of there's so much stuff on Netflix, it didn't really seem to grab my attention. But I heard some people talking about it on like some podcasts.
For the record, this is a Netflix movie. It's on all Netflixes. So
okay, cool.
Regionality be damned. It's Netflix concoction.
And also, I don't know if you mentioned it, but it's an Indonesian horror film.
Yeah, no, I said that.
Okay.
At the start, I think. Yeah.
But I just think that's noticeable because I think we actually got like a few horror movies from there, which to my knowledge, I don't think we've had many from them in the past.
The only movies I can think of that I've seen from Indonesia is The Raid 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That is all I can think of. And there may be more that I've seen, but that is all I can think of off the top of my head.
Anyway, though, from what got me interested is I had seen people talking about this and comparing it to Evil Dead a lot, saying it's like the Indonesian Evil Dead, and it's very Sam Raimi-esque. And when I watched it, I can definitely see that influence, but I don't think it was fully there for me. I think a big problem is this way too long. It's like 150-ish minutes.
You mean 1 hour 50, 150 minutes would be 2.5 hours, Timmy.
I apologize. Yes, an hour and 50 minutes. But I think it could have significantly been cut down. I think maybe you could have kind of pared away some of the family drama stuff and maybe focused a little bit more on some of the gore and stuff, and I think it would have been a little better. But overall, I did like it. I think my expectations were high and it didn't necessarily live up to them.
I think any horror movie that's getting close to 2 hours, I would assume that maybe I'll think that it should be shortened a little bit. Now, it's not always the case, but usually I expect a horror movie to be 90 minutes or less, good or bad.
Yeah, I think in general the trend of these overly long movies, like even the comic book and superhero epic movies that I do love, but once you get to the 2 hour mark, it is like, is this really necessary?
Well, buckle in for the 3 hour Infinity War, Tim, because it's happening.
I probably shouldn't complain about that because I do love Infinity War. Like, I guess certain stuff, I'm fine with it, but in general,
I meant Endgame. I meant the next one. You know what I meant?
Endgame. Oh man, that spoilery title. I can't believe they. Remember, they were like, "Oh, we can't reveal the title; it's a spoiler." And then this is the title.
You could have literally revealed the title Endgame way back when Avengers 1 came out. See, Infinity War is a spoiler in a sense because it tells you, it's about Thanos, it's about the Infinity Gems.
Sure.
But Endgame tells you nothing. Endgame can be a title of any movie.
Yeah. It is. It's a title of a Highlander movie.
That's true. Highlander Endgame. They're actually ripping off a Highlander movie. How dare they?
So what do you think of the movie?
What did I think of May the Devil Take You? Well, no. Wait, what? What's it called?
May the Devil Take You.
May
Yeah.
the Devil Take You.
Yeah.
What did I say? I feel like I said the wrong thing.
I think you started saying the right thing, but then lost confidence in yourself.
All right, okay, that's okay. Just double checking. May I take the devil to dinner on a show? So, no, I liked it. I will say I didn't know anything about this movie before I watched it. I had no preconceptions like you did, because you'd heard these things about comparing it to Rami and stuff. Because I will say the start of the movie had me a little bit worried. I wasn't a big fan of the opening scene.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that.
Because it felt very cliched. I felt like it was taking itself seriously, and it wasn't necessarily hitting any points. And then it cut to the present day stuff, and there was like this synth music started to kick in, and it felt like it was maybe going to be a bit more pulpy, and I was kind of feeling that a little bit. And it felt like it was going back and forth between wanting to be something that was kind of a silly 80s movie and wanting to be something that was a serious supernatural, like, scary movie. And,
I agree. Yeah.
And so I didn't know it was going to go Rami style at all, right? And it wasn't until like a certain point, maybe like 40 minutes into the movie, where something very Evil Dead, and more Evil Dead 1 than the rest. It's not like silly Evil Dead in the sense that it's like comedy Evil Dead. It was more serious Evil Dead. But something Evil Dead happened, and I went, oh, this is like Evil Dead-esque now. But I was kind of into it because it was like, okay, it's going full Evil Dead. I can kind of get into this. I do agree it's a bit too long, and I do think the final act is probably the weakest part of the movie, and because of that, it does drag it down a little bit for me overall. Because I liked the main character well enough. I liked some of the kills, and the violence and the gore were really good and visceral, and had a nice energy to it.
Yeah, I think there's especially one really standout like practical effect gore moment that I thought was really, really cool. I will mention it more in spoilers. I'll just say maybe the face part, just so you know what I'm talking about. But
but on faces though, there was also like a CGI tongue at one point that really bugged me.
Yeah, that was bad.
that ruined that whole scene. It just ruined the entire scene. I didn't care about any of it after once I saw that CG tongue. It just looked so bad. So that kind of sucked. But for the most part, I was pretty into it. And I wasn't sure what to feel going in. And I was kind of on this up and down of like, what is this movie going to be? Like, I was back and forth. Like, it kept kind of like going between these two kind of tones and things. Not like vastly different tones, just different enough where, I thought it was going down one path, but then it veered into like Sam Raimi Evil Dead instead. And I wasn't necessarily against that. And then the ending, it was probably the weakest part of the movie, just because it felt like it tried to give it a nice, neat solution when it didn't really feel like it was earned. It just kind of felt like, oh, this is just how you want to end it. Okay, fine.
It's a fine enough ending. Like, it's one of the, I'd agree. It's not like super satisfying. Like, it's not like it feels like they came up with that solution and they're just kind of like, well, that's good enough. Like, it wasn't maybe as cool or as surprising as it could have been. Like, I mean, I don't know what I would have done, like, obviously, but like, it does feel like maybe they could have done something a little cooler.
I think the problem is the movie. It's one of these movies where it feels like as it goes on, the characters are screwed because it feels like these supernatural forces can do basically anything. Right? There's almost no rules. And I like rules, but I can get behind it if that's just what the movie is to a point. But then all of a sudden, there's a solution to the ending where it kind of like it hinges on there being a rule, and it's a rule that was never established. It's a rule that was never brought up. I'd go as far to say that it just comes out of nowhere, like what the solution is at the end. And I went, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Okay, all right. I guess we'll go with that. And like you say, because it is too long, not only is the ending kind of weak in terms of what it does in a story perspective, it's also that final 20 minutes is where you're like, hey, this is still going on. Like, this should have been done at 90 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, that's really my only big complaint about it, because I do think a lot of stuff in the movie was really cool, and I feel like if you just trimmed it up, like, there are a few parts where I got bored, and I think it was mostly because there, like you said, it's kind of flip-flopping between like this kind of outrageous horror movie, and then there's this kind of more serious family drama aspect to it, and I really wasn't into that stuff as much. If you kind of got rid of that, I think it would make it a little less boring. It would tighten it up, and I think there's like a really good uh 90 to 100 minute movie here that is kind of stuck in a hour 50 minute
Yeah,
movie.
I think the core stuff behind the family drama is fine, like just for to give it like a backstory and who they are, especially since that's the main like horror plot feeds into kind of what the situation is.
Yeah, it's a good setup, but I mean, once once we're at the house and things are happening, like I'm all on board that. And yeah, it's I think there's like a few instances where it kind of gets dull again. It doesn't end up being like a like once the ride starts, it's not like all uphill. There's some lulls in it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I thought Alfie was a likable enough character. Like I think you kind of get into her as a protagonist fairly quickly, which is nice. So, I mean, that's good. That's good. And the rest of the characters are kind of whatever. Like like we have this kind of family, mainly brother and sisters about the same age. She's not really related to the others though. She's the stepsister. She's the actual natural birth child, which I thought was going to be a huge plot point. Like I thought that was going to be relevant towards the end because, she's the only one who's actually related to the guy who made this deal. But it never really actually factored into anything, really. So whatevs. But so you have some outrageous stuff, you have some good gore, you have some nice atmosphere here or there, but it is a bit overlong, and it does kind of it becomes probably the most like cliche during the last 20 minutes because it has to end it, and it doesn't know how to end it, so it does this thing to make it work. And that's kind of whatever. I also felt like, again, going back to the fact that there's no rules, like I actually really enjoyed what it does with the thing that I'm going to talk about, but it did pull this new mechanic out of nowhere about like 2/3 into it, where all of a sudden there's this new thing that can happen, and it was like, this doesn't feel like it's really set up or established or anything, it's just out of nowhere. But like I say, what they actually do with it, I actually liked a lot. So I was conflicted on that a little bit because it felt like they didn't set it up properly, but the actual end results were good. So, but yeah, but good overall. I'd say it's pretty good overall.
Yeah, I think it's still it deserves a watch. It's easy to see. It's on Netflix, and it's I think overall I would still recommend it. It's just there's it's one of those instances where it's I think the biggest complaint is just like, oh, it could have been better. Like, I feel like, you are on the movie's side, like you want to, root for a little bit more, but, at the same time, you do have that little like, but you could have, showed some improvement in some instances.
Yeah. I love when you're struggling to think of your point to him, because you can tell that you're having a particular hard time when you say maybe like 4 times in the space of like 20 seconds. So
I make sure that people know.
Because obviously it's just part of your dialect. You do it I do it as well. We do it every so often. But sometimes when you're struggling to think of like how to articulate something, it'll come out multiple times, and I think that's one of the things that shows how you feel about this movie, because it's like, no, it's pretty good, but there's just a couple of things holding it back from greatness, and that's kind of upsetting, because I was kind of into it, because I got kind of excited at a certain couple of points in the movie, thinking, oh, here we go, this is where it's starting to kick off, and it was to a point, but then it would slow down a little bit again, and then it would so I just did it there, So yeah, I guess we'll give a spoiler warning so we can talk about what happens in the back half and the more surprising elements. So full spoilers for the film. So the thing I was talking about earlier, where I was saying that there was like an element that's introduced like 2/3 in, I'm talking about the voodoo part of it, where
oh gee, I almost forgot about that. You're right, yeah.
All of a sudden, because when they eventually go down to the basement, which is like locked off at first, and the dad seemed to have put like religious symbols and like stuff on the door to keep in whatever was inside, because we find out at the end in a flashback that essentially what had been happening throughout the film, or in the backstory to the film, is that he remarried multiple times because he kept sacrificing his wives to make a new deal with the devil.
Yeah, so he basically made this so I think this is like a pretty great premise for a horror movie, where you have this guy, he doesn't necessarily sell like his soul to the devil. He sells like other people's souls. So when you have these people trapped, and it's like, okay, the devil's coming for you now because yeah, they're owed these souls. I do think it's like a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, because the first one is Alfie's mother. Obviously, she's upset about that. But he goes through a couple of ways before he gets to the last wife, the one that's in the movie, the actress, who has these other kids. And basically we see in the flashback that ultimately he was asked for his daughter, for Alfie, and he refused. So he stabbed the sorceress and buried her. And that's when he like probably put the symbols on the door to try and like, contain the evil so that, it wouldn't come for him or his daughter.
And when he does that, the sorceress like rips out some of his hair and swallows it, right?
Well, yeah, because that was part of the ritual at the start as well, is that she swallowed the wife's hair, because that was
yeah. And then that's important for later in the end of the movie.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
But so basically, when they come to like look at the house because they're going to sell it, and they start like looking through it and stuff, they rip off the symbols, they pull open the door, and that seemingly unleashes the evil. Just like in Evil Dead, it's reading the book. That's what it is. Yep. It's the scene where they read the book.
Yeah.
And eventually chaos happens where it possesses the wife, the current wife, the actress, who doesn't have a very great relationship with Alfie. Alfie kind of hates her, and she hates her back. And that's when we get to the Evil Dead stuff, because she's kind of like a deadite. She's running around, she's jumping, I liked how unnatural some of her movement was, though. At one point, she like jumps up to the lampshade and just falls back down, and it was like almost like a silly moment, but it was so erratic and chaotic that it kind of worked in the scene.
Yeah,
for what it was doing.
And it kind of it kind of reminded me a little bit of like obviously Evil Dead we mentioned a bunch of times, but it also gave me like a little bit of a feel of like kind of like early 2000s Japanese horror movies. Just like in the way kind of sometimes like the demon looks and the movements kind of remind me of that a little bit.
I guess I can see that. I think the way it was shot made it feel more like Evil Dead to me, because there was a lot of these like close-ups in the head being like all
the big thing that like is like the they have like the POV shot of like similar to Evil Dead, when you kind of have the evilness just kind of running through like the woods and stuff. They would do that.
Except
the movie.
Here there's like a shimmer effect, as if there's actually like a presence.
Oh yeah.
Moving through the house or whatever. So yeah, the voodoo thing, eventually when they get into the basement, because they kind of avoid it for a long time because like the actress was dragged down and then she comes back out all evil, there was these voodoo dolls of each of the people in the house, and eventually the other daughter, the actress's daughter Maya, she gets possessed from her mother. There's a whole scene where she fights her mother. Her mother's the one that has the crappy CG tongue during this scene.
Yeah.
One of my favourite scenes actually is when the brother Ruben, his girlfriend's coming right after chaos has already happened.
Yes.
And she's in her car and she gets kind of stuck in the mud, sort of like, maybe a mail from the house or whatever it is. And Maya, who seems to be possessed at this point, comes up to the car door and chaps on it, and she puts down the window a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, hey Maya, yeah, I'm here. Ruben wanted me to come." And she notices in the side view mirror that she's holding a hammer. That Maya's got a hammer in her hand, and she's looking kind of dangerous. And she's like, "I don't want to come out of the car. How about I'll just get you at the house? So we'll just meet there." And she tries to like look at her phone to contact for help or whatever, because it's just buzzing. And Maya just hammers in the window and then comes in, and it's just this visceral scene. And you don't see it, it's like, because the camera's behind the car seat at this point, but you just see her like violently thrust the hammer down repeatedly, as if she's just like frantically and quickly hitting her in the head with a hammer, and it feels so visceral that this was probably my favorite scene in the movie.
Oh, this is fantastic. Like if you isolate this scene, it like it's like a masterful, like if it was like a little horror short or something, it would be phenomenal. Just it does such a good job of creating like tension, and it is so scary. Just like you really feel for the girlfriend like being trapped here, and it's just so well done. Just like the kind of very almost like nonchalant way she just kind of notices the hammer, and the way Maya's like looking all weird and not the same, and she just
do you know what I think it is? I think it's how simple it is, because it's something that can happen. Someone could do this, but it's the way that there's no real drawing out of it. Once she decides she's going to kill her, she just comes in and does it, and there's no escape, there's no chase. It's just no, she was screwed. The moment she decided she was doing it, it was over.
And I think if we saw a generic American studio doing this scene, you'd get the loud music sting. Everything would be drawn in focus. It wouldn't give it the time to really breathe and feel natural like it does in this movie. It is it's I agree, this was easily it's a more subdued scene, but it's easily my favorite scene in the movie as well. I like all the big bombastic crazy demon stuff, but this scene on its own was just fantastic.
Yeah, so I was getting to the voodoo dolls because I was eventually getting this.
Oh, yeah.
So Maya comes back to the house. She's pretending to be okay, but she goes into the basement, and it's when she gets the voodoo dolls, she basically makes her own deal with the devil. At this point, she's talking to the sorceress, who's a spirit or whatever, and she makes her own deal, and then she goes through the house sort of working for Satan essentially, where she gets the voodoo dolls, and she starts when she's arguing with her brother, and she's trying to tell her brother, hey, no, we can give him the rest of everyone, give him Alfie, give him our little sister, and we'll never have to want anything ever again because I've made a deal. And he's like, who's he? Who are we talking about here? And she whispers, because they never actually say it, we never actually hear it out loud. The only thing we ever get is we get the goat-esque looking satanic image of what Satan might look like in the doorframe. But when he refuses, she grabs the voodoo doll that represents him and just snaps the arm, and his arm just kind of snaps backwards. And it's a good scene, and especially the ending of this where she pulls off the head, and we see his she's just doing it gradually. She's trying to pull the head off, and his neck's just stretching, and then eventually. And the great thing about this is that it cuts to a shot of Alfie, who turns around to look away from it, and he's kind of out of focus, just out of focus enough that you still see the head come off and just fly off his body. But because it's slightly out of focus, it just makes it feel a little bit more real, and less silly. It
was directed really well, and if you don't know what a director does, you can see the beginning of this episode. But
no, because the director has a lot of responsibility in pacing these scenes in terms of what are you seeing, when are you seeing it, and it is directed really well. So I want to criticize the voodoo thing a little bit, because it feels like just there's voodoo dolls, they literally work as voodoo dolls. Okay, that comes out of nowhere a little bit, but the effect of it, what they actually do with it, is really fun and looks really good. Because then when she chases Maya, when Maya chases Alfie down to the basement, she starts twisting her arm and her leg so that she's basically got a broken ankle and a broken hand. And she's really, and it's really obvious what's going to happen, because Alfie notices the voodoo doll representing Maya on her necklace, because she's wearing them around her neck, and you can actually see that it's gone from her necklace after she's been in close, because Alfie laughs about what's going on, so that she'll come in close to be like, oh, what you laughing about? What's funny? And it's she's grabbed the voodoo doll and she throws it in the fire. But yeah, she basically wins and survives because she pulls the hair out of the corpse of the sorceress who's in the dark, because the dad buried her down here. And yeah.
I'm sorry. No, just basically, kind of mirroring what happened earlier in the movie. Yeah, it's she stuffs the hair in her mouth and then stabs her with this knife, which probably wasn't intentional, but it did remind me of that knife that was not as big a part in the Evil Dead movies, but was in the Evil Dead TV show a lot. Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So that's the thing. I don't think the movie ever really set up the idea that removing the hair from the sorceress's body would do anything. Why does that fix anything? Why does that stop the pact? It's kind of weird. But fair enough. I'll take your word for it. And the little girl survives. She actually ends up helping her up, because it mimics a flashback we got of Alfie's mother dying, where she's the evil spirit.
Oh yeah.
the sorceress who looks kind of demony. It's very Insidious, actually. I thought it was almost a lady version of the Insidious demon in a lot of ways.
I can see that. Yeah.
Basically, she saw that kill her mother and pull her mother off the ledge of the high rise, and
it's actually kind of a silly scene, because because they have this little kid draped over the side, like holding on to their mother, and it's like the kid's so small. Like the mom would just like
Yeah.
pull her right down. Like it's
Well, I
kind of
think that's
funny.
the point. Is that the kid's not really holding her up. The mum's kind of just holding on, and the mum tells her
Yeah.
to let go because she knows she's just going to pull her down if she doesn't.
Yeah.
So that's the scene. So it kind of mimics that because the little sister, because basically as she's doing this, as she's like digging for the body, the sorceress, well, the last thing she does is like make the ground lower as if it's a grave. So she's like sort of trapped down. She's trying to climb up, she can't get up, and then the little girl, like, throws down her hand and pulls her up, and it mimics how she was trying to save her mum in the flashback, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, no, I mean, it's not a terrible ending. It's just it feels a bit more generic compared to the rest of the film.
Yeah, it's like a it's like it's kind of like they're saying, okay, we have the ending, like here it is, and yeah,
Do you know
it's
what it is?
maybe not.
It feels like a Hollywood ending. The rest of the movie does not feel like a Hollywood
Sure.
movie, but the ending feels
Yeah.
Hollywood.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that is what it is. But there's a lot of good moments actually with that. The the actual sorceress, the the ghosty demon version of her, where even at the start of the movie where you just see her in the
hospital.
in the hospital. Oh, I was even
Yeah.
not even the scene where she sees her like full on when she's in Dad's room. I'm thinking more the elevator scene where she's just in the background.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thinking the the scene where they have like in the hospital room, and you just see there's something behind that little, I don't know what you call it, but there's that kind of like screen.
Oh, the curtain.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just see her like behind there. I thought that was really creepy.
Yeah, that's not bad. That scene goes on a bit more longer than I thought it should have because it was more like she's in her face and kind of,
Yeah, it I think it starts off good, and then it does end with like a little bit of like of a kind of a cheap jump scary thing, but
Yeah.
I thought it was still good.
But I like the scene where she's in the little girl's room and like there's a lot of stuff where like, the little girl opens the closet door and we think we see a face and I thought that face looked really fake. But then she opens it again and it was fake because it was a painting. It wasn't like a real face. It was just a painting of a face.
Right, yeah.
And then the girl goes back to bed and then you see it just out of focus in the background. The door's opening and the shape of this woman coming towards the bed and then going down. And it becomes this scene of like her trying to pull like Alfie under the bed when Alfie comes out to try and protect the girl because the girl's screaming, obviously. And we have like her pop out of both sides of the bed, her face just coming out of the sheets and be like, hello.
Yeah.
It was an effective scene. It was another effective scene. There's a lot of effective set piece sort of scenes in this where it's not so much that they're scary as much as that they're just kind of fun. They're fun and playful in what they're doing. And that was what I was enjoying most about the movie. And I like some of the music as well. I mentioned some of the synth. In fact, much like the tone of the movie, I think it maybe flip-flopped a little bit where it was like doing this like synth score that you'd get in like an 80s horror movie, and then it would flip to like a more traditional like string score for like a modern supernatural movie. And I almost wish it just stuck to the one thing, preferably the synth one, because that was the one I liked. But I felt like sometimes it would forget that part of the score for a while and like go to something a bit more, playing it straight, something a bit more serious.
Yeah.
But like I say, I'm kind of nitpicking it a little bit, but I'm just kind of like saying why it wasn't a knockout of the park because I liked a lot of it quite a bit.
Well, I think like sitting here, if we go like scene by scene by the scenes that we like, it would make it sound like a really, really like great movie. But what you don't realize is when you actually sit down and watch it, in between those scenes, there's moments that are a little dull, that kind of really, bring the pacing down. So
which I think was fine for the first like half an hour because it's set up. It's like we're getting to know the characters, we're getting to know what the rules are. Yeah. It was after stuff started getting crazy when it slowed down again. After that, it was like, wait a minute, why are we slowing down this much again?
Yeah,
and it did that maybe a few too many times. Obviously you want a breather here or there, but it did it too many times, and like I said, the movie's a bit too long, and I think that's what its main downfall is. That and the more generic ending are probably the two main things. But it has fun set pieces, it's fun gory moments, fun crazy moments.
And like there's a like you said, like there's a few like obvious CGI parts, but for the most part, like there was some pretty cool like practical effects, like there's one or two things that seem cheap, but like for the most part, like everything like usually looked cool, like when there was gore or whatever. The part that really sticks out to me is just when Jesus, I forget who it was, but when they're like ripping the face off the
Oh yeah, it was
yeah.
it was the actress mother. It was she was ripping her face and then revealing like
Yeah.
another face inside her face. So
Like that was,
she put her hands in her mouth and just like ripped. It was almost
Yeah.
like Superman opening his shirt to reveal the S, but it was the entire face ripped open to reveal the bloody like
Yeah.
underface.
but I thought that was like phenomenal. Like that looks
It did
so
not look good.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looked really good. There's a lot of great moments like that. So, which makes rating it kind of interesting, doesn't it? Like, how do we rate this movie?
Yeah, it's a little tough, and it's this is one of those things too where I kind of thought because I watched it almost I think I watched it on like Monday or something, maybe Monday or Tuesday, so it's been almost a week. And I had some time to think about it, and I kind of thought I was going to be maybe a little more like less going into it, but then I don't know, just like talking about the scenes that we liked again, like I don't know, it's kind of like bringing me back up again, like, oh no, that was cool, and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that was pretty cool. So I think I'm gonna give it a pretty decent score. I think I'll go with a 7.5, which I feel like that's kind of like you're almost there. Like I like when you said a knock out of the park, because it's like, yeah, you feel like you got really close to it, but you didn't quite get to that level. But there's definitely potential there, and like I don't know if this guy like does any more horror movies, I'm definitely gonna check him out. Because I enjoyed this. This was just those few little downfalls.
Yeah, I actually agree with the 7.5. I think it's good, very good even in places. It just needed tightened up a little bit, tightened up in its length, tightened up in its pacing, and its ending. So yeah, but no, pretty good overall though. Solid 7.5. So yeah, there you go. That is May the Devil Take You. So let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. But if you want to support us even more than that, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us over there for as little as $1 per month. But at the $5 tier, you get access to voting once per month on the Patreon's Choice episode, which me and Timmy will be doing soonish for this month. I think we scheduled a bunch of movies and then I didn't realize we had to fit that movie in somewhere.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. That'll be coming soon. I mean, this episode might go up in February anyway. It may not be January anymore, but yeah. So whatever, we'll get to that. But yeah, so go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, have a look at all the things. What is handy about there, even if you're not going to be a patron, is that the top post has links to all of our shows and all of our audio feeds for everything we do. So if you're interested in other movie reviews or comic book podcasts or TV reviews, whatever.
Video games.
But that's been Streams After Midnight, so thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.